There was something that happened about 6 months ago in my life that when it happened, I knew instantly that I would be preaching about it at Christmas on December 24th and 25th at all the masses. And I don't normally plan out my homily 6 months in advance, but I knew in that moment that I would be talking about it today. And to set the scene a little bit, my mom and dad, most of you probably are aware at this point, I'm the oldest of 11 children. And so my mom and dad, we have kind of a standing invitation at their house, anytime really, but particularly Sunday evening, there's always a dinner, and anyone that's around is welcome to come. And so we have just a great time together when we're able to join in on that. We have a huge table in my parents' dining room. My dad actually made it by hand, and he didn't make wasn't a carpenter or anything, he didn't make a lot of stuff. So I still remember when he was out in the yard making the table, and we were all sort of laughing at him like Noah's Ark. He's like, it looked like he was building an ark. We're all like, Dad, what are you doing? You don't know what you're talking, you don't know what you're doing. But anyways, it's amazing. It worked, and it's still our table, and it's like 75 feet long, it seems like. And we can fit 20, 25 people around this table. So there's room for everybody. And it's a great thing. I'm not able to do it all the time. I have the DePaw Mass Sunday nights during the school year, but in the summer, I like to try and attend that dinner on Sunday nights whenever I can. And so this one particular Sunday evening in July, we were gathered for dinner, and it was one of those things when you have a 75-foot table, conversations break out on both ends, And so I was kind of sitting in the middle of the table. The table's not 75 feet, actually. I was just joking. But anyways, I'm sitting in the middle of the table and kind of listening in on the different conversations. And I was like, well, if something comes up, I'll join in one or throw in my 2 cents. And nothing really did. So I just kind of sat there and enjoyed just kind of being with my brothers and sisters and family and so forth. And I have 5 nieces and nephews. And one of my nieces, is also my goddaughter. And her name is Lucy. And she's about 1 year old, and she can't quite talk yet. But I'm a little bit partial, and I think she's at least tied for cutest child in the world. And I'm sure you know some people that are probably tied for that award as well. But anyway, so I'm sitting there, listening to the conversations, just kind of enjoying being there, looking back and forth. And across the table and a couple seats over, I look over and Lucy is simply staring at me with a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye. She's just grinning ear to ear. She's always been a happy baby, but it was just I was just struck by her smile. And so I smile back, and we kind of carry on this wordless conversation of smiling, right? And what was also struck me was I realized, kind of thinking about, I was just really struck in that moment by a lot of things. But I was also recognized that as I sat there and was thinking, I was like, you know what, I think she's been looking at me for like a minute. And I remembered out of the peripheral vision that she had been waiting and staring at me and kind of just smiling for a while. Just waiting to have me catch her smile and her glance. And I was struck in that moment by, this is how God looks at me. This is how God looks at me. And this is how I was taken back instantly then to Christmas and the Christ child. And the fact that Christ is a baby. Christ became a baby. Not just a human being. He didn't just come down on a chariot. He became a child. And so Christ looks at me in the same way that Lucy, as awesome as she is not God. She doesn't love me. She loves me, I'm pretty sure. But she doesn't love me as much as Jesus does, right? Jesus looks at me in the same way that Lucy does, if not with more. A bigger smile and more love, if that's possible. And I think the reason then so as I was reflecting on that and thinking about Christmas, last night and today, churches around the world are overflowing, right, with more people than normal. More people around the world say they come to Christmas celebrations and Christmas services. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that people, when they see the Christ child, they say to themselves, that's a God I can get. That's a God that I understand. That's a God that resonates with me. A God that smiles at me and is a child. And that loves me and looks on me with that same look. Right? But the problem is that this weekend and moving forward, of course, as we know, like the crowds will die out a little bit. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that we forget that Christ still looks at us this way all the time. And I think when we grow older, we grow into our teen years, even when we hit the terrible twos, right? We grow older, we grow into our teen years, and we get that angst about us sometimes. And, mom and dad, they don't know what they're talking about, and maybe we get a little bit bitter with the world, and we grow older, and our hearts harden, and we sometimes can kind of calcify and develop kind of this thick skin, and we change a little bit, and not always for the better. We have our moments, right? And I think a lot of people think, maybe first of all ourselves, that Jesus went through that too. And go, okay, on Christmas Jesus is smiling, that's great, let's all go and celebrate that. But Jesus grew up into being a teenager, with angst, and then he became an adult who was like, well, just do what I tell you, and don't worry about it, because I'm your dad and your son and whatever, I'm Jesus. And so we stop coming because we think of Jesus that way, or we stop looking at things in the same way because we think that Jesus changed. But God does not change. Jesus didn't grow older and become grumpy. Jesus didn't grow into being some sort of disciplinarian or someone who, is changed and sort of mad at us. And I think that so many people have wrong images of God in their mind, and it keeps them from authentic spiritual encounter. It keeps them away from the church. It keeps them away from prayer. They might think of God as, like the image I always like to use a lot is the PE teacher. Maybe I need to see a counselor about my PE teacher, I'm not sure, because they keep talking about it, but I had actually a really good one. But you know what I'm talking about, the image of the person standing over you, like, give me one more beatitude. Drop down and don't forget the 10 Commandments. And you're bad, and you're in trouble now, and you got to go see the dean, and, all these things. Many people, I think of God and think of the church in that way. And they think of Jesus in that way, but they forget this. We forget this. We talk about, you hear that phrase, I want to keep Christmas in my heart year-round. And I think what that means is remember this year-round. That Jesus looks at us in the same way, with that same smile that a child looks at us with. And no matter what we do, no matter what sins we commit, we can turn from the Christ child, but he doesn't turn from us. We might not notice the smile of the Christ child, Jesus looking at us with his infinite love, but he doesn't stop. We can commit sin, we can do things where we definitively turn away, but God doesn't. Christ always looks at us with the same smile, hoping to catch our eye, hoping to catch our attention, hoping to get us to smile back. Before I looked at Lucy that night, I wasn't smiling. I wasn't in a bad mood, but I wasn't smiling. But when I caught her eye, it warmed my heart, and it changed me, and I was able to smile too. And so, as we think about these things, what I'd like you to do is maybe just in this moment, if you can think of whatever sufferings you might be going through at this moment in your life, whatever crosses you might be carrying. And I also want you to maybe call to mind, if you have some of them, some of the teachings of Jesus that you find to be a challenge, that you find to be hard, some of the teachings of the church that you're like, you know what, I'm not sure I get that, or I'm not sure I like that. I'm not sure that I agree with that, whatever it might be. And I want you to, instead of thinking of it coming from a disciplinarian, a drill instructor, or a PE teacher, I want you to think of it as the Christ child looking at you lovingly and smiling and saying, I'm asking you to carry this cross. I'm asking you to endure this suffering. I'm asking you to follow this teaching, even though you may not get it, you may not totally understand it. And if we hear it coming from a child with a big smile on his face saying, trust me, I love you, it gets so much easier to follow and to trust. And so we pray that we may be people who keep Christmas, not just today, not just for a few days, but year-round. That we may help spread that news, that good news, that Jesus looks on us with a smile and the love of a child. And we pray that we may also bring other people to encounter that same Jesus. And we pray that what we celebrate today in the prayers, the Eucharist, everything that we're here doing, that it may help us keep Christmas year-round and not just today.